manufacturing, technology, hot topics, and a little bit of tomfoolery. This is the MTD Podcast.
Right, podcast number 20. The big guns are here. Joe Reynolds, Giovanni Albanese. Guten Tag. Don't go all German on me, my friend.
Hi, Cole.
Italian?
I am half. Just
Yeah,
a good half.
which half? Anyway, Colin Griffiths, who's going to be leading the conversation. Tom Foolery, he's back. He's not very good though, but he'll be back.
He's had a couple of weeks off.
I know, he's not very good. Right, I want to put a disclaimer in because having discussed a few things earlier, we don't know all the answers. I know that's surprising. We don't know. And if we get it wrong, A, get in contact with us and put us right. And B, if we don't know the answer, get in contact and help us out. How's that? So, today, look at you two looking stunned. Don't worry, it's all good.
I'm thinking speak for yourself.
Today is tool holders, and I'm talking proper tool holders, not, sitting in your car, that's holding a tool, i.e. you two. Come on, guys, work with me here. So tell me, what should I know about tool holders?
Where'd you start? Tool holders.
Well, somewhere.
Anything from a R8 collet off a turret mill. Obviously, BT, DIN, ISO. We've got Capto now.
Once
Where
again,
do you want to start?
Joe
Help me out.
Googling.
Where do you want to start?
HSK.
Should we start with the topic of the importance of tool holders and
No,
how they
that's
affect
good.
your
Okay,
processes?
Can I just clarify as well, we're talking milling machines here, not turning, is that correct?
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
that's correct,
Well, HSK. HSK and Capto you could put on a multitasking machine as well, but we won't go there.
Okay,
We're
Gio,
talking milling machines.
shut up, Joe. Back to Gio. What are you going to tell us, mate? Or ask us? Tell us.
I think if we start off, let's start from, how does it affect the machining process by the different tool holders that you use? I mean, sometimes...
Well, let me ask that question then, Gio. How does it affect the machining process?
Well, in a lot of ways, really. So
That's not a comprehensive answer.
sometimes this is overlooked. The tooling and the tool holders is a big factor in the machining process, and sometimes it can be overlooked. And it has, as Joe says, it's just as important as the machine tool, because if you didn't have the correct tool holders, you're not going to get the right results.
Okay, so I've bought a nice flash new machine. I spent, let's say, 150,000 as a rough figure. It's brilliant. It's got all the bells and whistles, and it'll do 5-axis simultaneous, everything I need it to do and make these fantastic components. I'm just going to use the old tool holders. Is that right?
It depends if they're good tool holders or not.
Do you know what? That breaks my heart, and it happens every day.
Why? Because you were the salesman that didn't spend enough money.
No, there's a company not far from here. We're in Bedfordshire, and there's a company not too far from here.
We're in Northamptonshire, but keep going.
Okay, they've got 3 Mazak VTC 800 SRs.
Ooh.
I don't know what they paid, but you're looking just shy of £250,000 each for that machine, 5-axis VTC. And you go in there, and they brag about how they've got 4 tool holders for £100.
Oh, that's like a good deal.
So you got to buy the material, albeit made in China, whatever, which is fine, but you got to buy the material, you've got to turn it, you've got to send it off for annealing or heat treat, you've got to have it back, you've got to grind it, you've got to put it in a box, you've got to put it on a boat, and someone somewhere is making a margin. So what does that tell you, all engineers? It's impossible. You really do, people talk about you get what you pay for machine tools. It's even more true with tool holders. There's never an excuse to buy a cheap tool holder, in my opinion. I'm not saying you have to buy the best all the time. And on machine tools, quite often, an inferior machine, cheaper machine, will do it
There's
fine.
no inferior machines, just less expensive.
But there's entry
More
level,
cost effective.
Exactly, there's entry level machines which are significantly cheaper than the rest, and on certain jobs they do as good a job. That isn't the same on a tool holder. It just isn't.
I think
So
when you
go entry level machine, go your decent quality tool holders.
I would argue.
That was a long way of saying it.
I would argue if you've got a budget and you can afford a brilliant machine or cheap tool holders, or an okay machine and okay tool holders, I'll go with the latter every time.
Okay.
It really, really is that important.
Okay.
You want, whether it's BT, HSK, or whatever it may be, you need to buy good tool holders. You really do.
And the reason behind that is the contact area between your spindles. So if you're talking £250,000 machine, what is making contact with the internals of your spindle? It's the tool holder. So if you've got an inaccurate tool holder, which is not the contact area within the spindle is not correct, you're going to be damaging the spindle. But not only damaging the spindle, you're going to be having run out issues, accuracy issues. When you're running the tool at the highest RPM, the centrifugal forces, you're going to be getting vibration issues. So the longevity, it could affect the longevity of the spindle, but not only the longevity of the spindle and having to replace an expensive spindle, but the quality of the components that you're trying to make. The quality of the components that you bought a £250,000 machine tool to make quality components, you're not going to be getting.
There's a lot of arm waving.
results.
You're very passionate about this, Jim.
You're not
There's a
going
lot
to
of
be getting
Italian
the
arm
right
waving going on
results.
here.
Well, for me, it is the most frustrating thing in the whole industry. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I do get quite passionate about it. You've
But that's
got.
good. We want some passion from you two, not later, just
I,
on the
I
show.
used to attempt to sell cutting tools in a different life, and you'd be called in. I need to improve the surface finish, and they always blame the tool. So you can put whatever you want in there, mate.
Well, that's we're calling you a tool, but
Yeah, you take your tool holder out. It's got a series of black rings, and essentially what you've got there, that's lubricant and high spots on the tool holder.
Right.
So
which means what?
It's not making good contact.
it's not making good contact.
Okay.
That taper is meant to be consistent. It's meant to become one with the machine. And whereas all those rings, they're just high spots.
Does that come back to 4 tool holders for £100?
Absolutely.
So you're going to get
Yeah.
you're going to get all those rings on
You
those
get
sort
what
of
you
things.
paid for.
It's kind of common sense. It's if I give any engineer in this country an order for 1 million tool holders, they can't make them for £20. They just can't.
It's
Good
impossible,
ones.
in
Okay.
my opinion. I just
Right.
don't know how that's achievable.
I think
Volume,
moving on, gents. I think we've grasped the issue there. You need to buy decent tool holders for your machines, whether entry level or high end machines. Tool holders all the time.
If you're looking to
Spindles start at 8k. Plus, the best service department in the country, by the time they've got a spindle and all the rest of it, I bet you're looking at 3 or 4 days typically to have a spindle repaired. It's going to cost you anywhere between 8 and a budget one's £8. Average for spindles, you're probably looking more like 15. Just buy the tool holders up front.
Absolutely.
Joe,
You want
you're
to keep
a
those
cutting-
spindles turning?
You mentioned
Put them in
cutting.
the finance of the machine.
Okay, right. So I'm gonna our next thing I want to discuss is I've seen these heat shrink systems. What happens there?
Yeah. Shall I get James? Do you want to talk?
Oh,
Yeah.
Stunned look from both of you.
Well, firstly, I just wanted to say with Joe. Joe mentioned cutting tools.
Don't go off my script.
Joe
here,
is
don't go.
a cutting tool specialist.
Really?
Sorry, Colin, but I just want to
Still gonna
bring
do it
this
anyway.
point up. Also, I would imagine, you've been to see customers having the wrong tooling would affect the longevity of the cutting tool as well. Am I correct, Joe?
If you buy and it goes full circle, I'm a big advocate for
It spins around in a
balance.
circle, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of balanced tool holders, which is a different argument. And I don't mean balanced. Everyone claims their tool holders are balanced. You put them in a balancer, they're blooming not. They are just not balanced. And if you put an inferior
That's
tool
a
holder,
big statement to make, Joe.
they're just not. They're not.
Okay.
Trust me. And then you put a tool holder in. You put a dodgy tool holder in with a tool in. If let's say it's a 4 flute, it'll only be cutting on 2 flutes. In a lot of instances,
It's not running
Really?
true.
No, it's not running true, and it'll always cut on the high spots. So when you're looking at tooth load, you're trying to calculate tooth load. You think you're being clever, but in truth, it's all wrong because you're only cutting on 2 teeth. So you think you're in a particular feed rate, which you
Right.
obviously are, but you're putting stress into the tool. So it's all life for double minimum with
Tool
premium.
life would double or halve. Which way it go?
Sorry, yeah. No, if you buy a premium tool holder,
Yeah.
I
Right.
guarantee in the majority of instances, your tool life will a minimum of double.
Okay. So
Quality of components
yeah.
would.
And the shrink fit, I don't know brands that some are guaranteed for 1,000 shrinks, but they just don't. It's providing they're heated correctly, they'll last forever. Just
right.
And basically, moving into shrink fit, I think it's the same kind of analogy that we're using with getting good tool holders that become one with the spindle.
Yep.
Then the actual tools are becoming one with the tool holder.
Right.
So if you're looking from spindle down, the connection between the spindle, the tool holder, and the tool all become one.
Yep.
And that is the kind of perfect scenario, really, because you're getting you're eliminating vibration, which is a killer in every aspect, whether it be the longevity of the cutting tools, whether it be the longevity of the spindle. But then you're also creating, if you've got a 10mm cutter, it'll actually be cutting 10mm. It won't be cutting 10.1. It won't be cutting 10.15 because it's running out. But also the deflection as well.
Gio, this is
running
radio
true.
program. You're doing all these hand signals and no one can see it, mate.
But you know what I mean. Yeah,
I think we all know what you mean.
And so I think it's absolutely imperative, like Joe mentioned, that pay that money for the
So it's like
expensive
just
tool
imagine
holders.
like a one-piece casting on a machine. If it's a one-piece casting, rather, it's all fabricated and put together. It's just going to be a lot stronger, a lot more rigid, and you're going to get that performance.
When you've got mating parts, you've got tolerancing in between the mating parts, and the more mating parts that you get, you're going to get discrepancies. So you're trying to eliminate any discrepancies.
Moving on then, I want to say to you, back end. What does that mean?
A back end.
Be polite, be polite.
One presumes you're talking about tool holders. Well, a back end is just slang for any tool holder. So a BT, a HSK,
Right,
a
simple as
Capto.
that.
Back end, pass me back end. It's a tool holder.
It's the back end that actually goes into the spindle.
Yeah.
The front end is the bit that holds the cutting tool.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So, and hopefully I'm not talking out of my back end, but that's, yeah.
Has been known, yeah, but not today, not today.
Just to answer your question about heat shrink, essentially you've got a hole in the holder in the front end. You heat it up, it expands, so the tool then drops in.
Yep.
You cool it down, it contracts, gets 360-degree contact. That's a heat shrink.
Yep, so it's making it, as Gio said, all into one.
Yeah, typically back in the day, you saw it a lot on mould and die where reach was an issue.
Yep.
Whereas now it's becoming an everyday product for a lot of machinists.
When you say reach, length of tool.
Yeah, so if you imagine a collet chuck,
Yep.
typically, and there are some slimline ones now, but typically, if you want to get down, say 600 mil, you'd have to have a massive holder, and it would foul on the job. There'd be interference. Whereas on a shrink fit, it's much
Slimmer.
thank you. That's the word. Much slimmer, so you can get
It's
deeper.
like you sitting next to me then.
Well,
Much
if you look
slimmer.
at, if you go to like,
He's missed that one.
and I'm just used to it.
I know, it's good.
If you go to a trade show and go to a stand like the Heimer stand, there's
Yep.
various manufacturers, but Heimer.
Yep. Other ones are available then.
Exactly. They'll have a heat shrink with a shrink in. And what I mean by that is they'll heat shrink a holder into the unit and then another one, and they build it up modular. And essentially you're looking at accuracy of 3 microns. And to be fair, it's 3 microns per holder typically. But you imagine over a meter, you might only be running out 9 or 10 microns. It's stunning.
Not
there's
bad at all.
Really, there's no other system to do it in that.
Anyway, back to the back end. So that was just the tool holder, wasn't it?
So I think just giving an example, when I was on the shop floor, I didn't have the luxury of having shrink fit or using shrink fit. We used to get over that if we were doing deep pockets and we needed to get down into a deep pocket without sticking the end mill out.
That'd be Paul Jones, that will. Deep pockets.
We used to. He has got deep pockets apparently. I don't know.
Short arms.
But sorry, I've lost my train of
Oh,
thought
sorry,
now.
Joe. Deep pockets.
Yeah, so in my day, I didn't have the luxury of using a shrink fit. However, we used to use side and lock holders. So basically, the back end would and the front end would be one, but instead of having a shrink fit, you'd just have a bore and then a cap head that locks the tool in from the side. But you imagine if you've got, say, a 16 mil end mill back end,
Hold on.
you've got to put it into
I'm imagining
16 mil bore. The 16 mil bore will be a H7 fit, which is obviously got to be slightly bigger than the 16 mil diameter. Then you're locking it onto like what's called a whistle notch flat.
It's coming out with all these little phrases.
And you've not got that same accuracy or level of
Georgia,
accuracy.
that is I get why they did it at the time. That is the worst system imaginable.
But that's why they don't do it anymore.
It runs out.
Yeah.
Everyone's got one. There won't be an engineer in this country with that one because it's a get out of jail card. But that tool.
But that's an old blast from the past, isn't it?
But that's how an example of how things have evolved.
Well, no, loads of people use it. It's not so bad on indexable, but on solid carbide, it's a big no-no for me.
Poor old Jazzo now. Then. Right, next thing.
Big no-no.
Extended tools? Or was that really cover what you were saying there?
Well, that kind of leads on from where Joe says about the kind of the length of the tool. So it's to get down to deep pockets. You don't want to be kind of holding on a tiny little bit of your cutting tool and have it sticking out.
Tunnel milling, is that an example?
Well, tunnel milling is a term Grob used for when they retract the spindle all the way up, what they call the tunnel. So yeah, you would need the tool in that instance, but that is, it's for reach, but that's the other way around. That's for the machine rather than the component. Typically, if you imagine a big mold with a wall and a slight taper, a draft angle, if you had traditional tooling, when you dropped it towards the bottom, that would foul on the wall. It wouldn't be possible. There was no clearance. So then you have this long reach, typically shrink fit, although there are Big Kais and a couple of others do have some slim line and Nikon slim line tool holders as well for that now. But typically it was always an shrink fit.
Well done, Joe. We'll give you a little round of applause for that one. Now, I want to ask, let Gio back up. Right, we've mentioned sort of HSK, which we know it stands for Whole Shaft Kegel in German.
Correct.
BT, what's BBT?
So BBT,
Ooh.
people also call it Big Plus. I think there's probably there's other people that do it, but if you want true face and taper,
I do want true face and taper.
Well, it's Big Kaiser.
Right.
Big Kaiser, they painted the disc. I don't know when.
I
but
was going
quite
to
some
say
time
other
ago.
ones are available, but by the sounds they're not. Then,
Well,
if
they've got over.
patented it.
I think there's someone else that does it, but really all the premium brands, as far as I know, use Big Kaiser,
Right.
which used to be Big Die Shower, which is a bit of a merge and what have you. But 170 licenses currently worldwide use that system. So there may be other people, but the vast majority
Right.
are using. And it's face and taper. HSK was the first face and taper system, but now it's on.
Because with the HSK system as well, the grippers on the tool holder are basically holding it on the ID, whereas the other system is on the OD when you're looking at the tool holder. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so
Just to
HSK,
visualise.
HSK, you see a lot on when you're machining aluminium high speed, because the issue with BT and DIN and all the others, and ISO, it's the centrifugal force is. You get the term. I'm struggling for terms. Not bellowing effect. What's the term?
They're heavier, aren't they?
They're heavier,
they're a lot
but the quicker you go, the more it runs out. And there's a
Yeah,
term, and forgive me, I can't think what it
Well,
is.
that's a
But-
good
but-
opportunity for someone to contact us and
Yeah,
say what it is.
Okay.
Come on, Joe.
It's
Right.
not, it
Anyway,
doesn't matter. Anyway, HSK, you don't get as big a problem really. It holds
Okay.
in the middle. You're not using a retention bolt or pull stud. It holds actually integral part of the tool holder.
guys,
Better
you know
win.
what?
Better win.
I know you're in full flow. I'm going to shut you up because we're coming to the end of the show. Quick summary. So we've done HSK, BT, BBT, heat shrink, black rings on your holders. We didn't mention VDIs and BMTs because that's on your lathes, back ends, your extended tools, runouts.
Yeah. Okay. If we haven't got time, we haven't got time. But anyone
Well, shut up then.
anyone listening or watching this, get on the internet. Start Googling, balance tool holders. How do I balance my tool holders? It's a whole minefield. It's a podcast on itself. But you want balanced tool holders. If it's a collet, you want a balanced collet. And if it's got a nut on it, which you obviously will, if it's a collet, you need a balanced nut as well. The amount of people out there will buy a balanced tool holder and put a standard ER collet on there and a standard nut, which is out of balance. So it's pointless.
So from the whole show, I'm getting balanced and premium. Don't go cheap.
Absolutely.
There are arguments to buy cheap machinery occasionally, cheap tooling even occasionally, but never a cheap tool holder.
Okay. Gentlemen, Joe, Gio, Tom Foley hasn't really been involved. Thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you soon.